Prime Minister Stuart Young has confirmed that the United States has revoked Trinidad and Tobago's license to develop a dragon gas field with Venezuela. However, Young says the government will be exploring options to reverse the decision made by the United States government. Trinidad and Tobago was granted an OFAC license on the 31st of October 2003, paving the way for the potential extraction of gas from the Dragon field in Venezuelan waters. A second license was granted on May 31st, 2024. Both licenses were granted for a period of 2 years. Listen, this is not something to rejoice over, but the writing was on the wall. The question now is, how much money did Trinidad and Tobago lose with this deal? It doesn't matter if you're red or yellow. This deal with Maduro was always going to be a risky one. But a lot of us knew that this deal wasn't going to get off the ground. So I'm not surprised. Following the stabbing death of inmate Brent Batiste, a nationwide lockdown has been ordered of all prison facilities. Brent Batiste was stabbed to death during a clash between two rival gangs, who used improvised weapons during their scuffle. All prison visitation has been suspended until further notice. Meanwhile, investigations are continuing on the discovery of a loaded pistol inside a prison block. There's too much corruption in our prison service. Think about it. How else a loaded gun would arrive in our maximum security prison? We have prisoners with their own personal cell phone and enough time on their hands that they can fight a gang war. We really need to take note of the prison system in El Salvador and get rid of this jokey prison system that we have in Trinidad and Tobago, because it's not working. Or we really need to have prison reform. Have prisoners work and pay their debt to society instead of laying in the prison, smoking weed, gambling, liming. That's not going to help us or them in the long run. We really need to do something about the prison officers who are bringing in the drugs, the ammunition and the guns, the cell phones in our prison. Because after they let a 1-2 bribe slide, this is the situation that we end up in. And who's to blame? The Venezuelan gang Trinidad, designated a foreign terrorism group by the United States, has had a presence in Trinidad and Tobago for over 3 years. Trinidad operates in countries where most Venezuelan migrants have arrived. Example, Chile, Peru, Colombia, Brazil, Belize, and Trinidad and Tobago. The Venezuelan gang operates in certain pockets of Central, South, and the East-West corridor of Trinidad. They can be identified by the way they wear their hats and specific gang tattoos. They are heavily focused on human and drug trafficking and can be linked to some of the murders in Trinidad and Tobago. As a citizen of Trinidad and Tobago, it always seems like we are in between a rock and a hard place, because we all know our government is not interested in crime and gang-related activities. Every day is like crap will smoke our pipe, but y'all go let me know. Did you all know that there was a Venezuelan terrorist group operating out of Trinidad and Tobago? And how safe does that make you feel? Y'all go let me know. As gang violence broke out behind the prison walls, one person has been stabbed to death at the maximum security prison in Aruca. The prison service has yet to confirm the killing. However, police have confirmed the death, but no identity has been released. In a viral video on social media, inmates can be seen chasing and kicking one another. Another video shows one inmate being taken away by a larger group. Who is really running the prisons? The inmates or the prison service? So far, a 9mm gun has been found in the prison, with ammunition, homemade weapons, cell phones, and we all remember that infamous jailbreak where a grenade was found outside the prison. To me, the prison service needs a full revamp because the inmates are running the asylum. A 9mm pistol with 7 rounds of ammunition, 7 cell phones, and 10 homemade weapons were seized during an operation at the maximum security prison. This operation was targeted to specific divisions of the prison, which led them to discover the contraband. In other news, 2 Venezuelan men were fatally shot by police earlier this morning. Police said the men were armed with a firearm and a Chinese chopper and confronted the officers. The deceased were identified as a 37-year-old and a 29-year-old, and both Venezuelan nationals. In other news, Kamala Persaud-Bissessar says the UNC has no plans to devalue the TT dollar, refuting claims made by PNM members. She also commented on the compensation given to the families of the Paria tragedy, calling the move shameless and election bribery. Former UNC member Larry Lala has responded to criticism after his recent support for PNM. Recently, Lala has shown support for PNM by showing up to PNM rallies, wearing PNM branded shirts, and speaking at PNM political meetings. He has been very vocal about the UNC selection process for their candidates and says the party is no longer close to its original entity. If Pick Me was a person, it would be Larry Lala. And I'm a sports fan and I cannot support Chelsea and Manchester United in the same breath. The UNC and the PNM have different views, different objectives on how they see the country being governed. So jumping ship from one party to another, it says a lot about him as a person. The funny thing is he's being used like a chess piece and he doesn't see it. He just wants to be in politics at any cost. And that is very scary. And as I said, I'm a sports fan. And win, lose or draw, you have to go down with the team. You go let me know, what do you all think about Larry Lala and the political hopscotch he is playing? Do you all trust him? Because if you jump once, you can jump again. Trust me, it don't look good. Michaela Pandey has chosen to contest the Kuvena North seat held by her father and UNC founder Basdio Pandey for 34 years. Her opponents will be UNC's Jolene John and PNM's Brent Maraj. Her father was elected the Member of Parliament for Kuvena North in 1976 and held it until 2010. Do you all think that Michaela Pandey has a chance to win the Kuvena North seat over the UNC and the PNM? I've attached a poll above, you go let me know.
But that was a shock. I don't know where she popped out from. I think La Hocketa. I'm not sure. I just met the young man there.
From the PNM?
From the PNM, yes. A nice guy.
Who's that?
Yeah, I don't know him. Nice guy.
Yeah.
Sorry. One quick one, and it was kind of to piggyback on
3 years after the Paria diving tragedy, Cabinet has agreed to pay a compensation of $1 million to each of the family members of the 4 deceased divers and the 1 sole survivor. He says this financial compensation will never be enough to compensate them for the pain of this tragic circumstance. Now I'm happy that the sole survivor and the families of the deceased are being compensated after this tragedy. But this should have been done sooner, and not days before an election. As Stuarty, I was there with those families when you arrived at Paria, and those people had to spend the night in the parking lot. And when you arrived, you didn't greet the people, you walked past them straight and headed straight into the building. When you left that building, you still didn't greet the people, but you left a message for them to follow you for a meeting. And with elections looming in the air, this is a disrespectful and shameful act to me to buy voters. But you all go let me know what you all think. Prime Minister Stuart Young has warned that if the UNC wins the upcoming general elections, the TT dollar could be devalued. He says that $1 will equal 15 TT dollars. Stuart Young was basing these allegations on the UNC's economic proposal for 2020 to 2025. He says the IMF has advised Trinidad and Tobago to float the TT dollar for over a decade. However, the PNM has resisted. He says the UNC's plan will lead to a significant increase in living costs. I'm not going to lie, the he say, she say in politics could be too much. Because Stuart Young was very quiet when his political leader, Kit Rowley, was devaluing our lives for the past 10 years. And to be honest with you, I do not see any difference between Stuart Young and Kit Rowley. It's the same politics, the same person. Because if you let Stuart Young tell the story, he will tell you everything in Trinidad is perfect. We have no crime. Everybody is living a perfect life and we are safe in PNM hands. And Stuarty, to tell you the truth, $100 is like $10 in Trinidad right now. Because as soon as you go in the grocery, that money done. Y'all go let me know what y'all think about the PNM's election strategy. Because right now it's just UNC, Kamala. Tell us how you're going to benefit us as the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago now. Please. Politics in Trinidad and Tobago is never boring. But the most dramatic elections in Trinidad and Tobago history had to be the 2010 general elections when Kamala Pasabi-Sessa dethroned Patrick Manning in a historic political shakeup. You see, Patrick Manning and the PNM had been in power since 2002, and in 2010, frustrations started to boil over. In 2010, crime was sky high, there was a lot of wasteful spending, and Patrick Manning was very arrogant. So arrogant that he called a snap election 2.5 years into his term, thinking that he would have an easy win. In 2010, Kamala Pasabi-Sessa was the new leader of the UNC, as she pulled a shocking takeover, ousting Basdio Pandey out of the party. Kamala Pasabi-Sessa also formed a 5-party coalition, uniting Afro and Indo voters in a way never seen before. On election night, the PNM was crushed as they lost half their seats. Patrick Manning also lost his San Fernando East seat in the most humiliating way. That night, the PNM lost their dominance after 8 years in power, and Trinidad and Tobago got their first female prime minister. To me, that was the most dramatic elections in Trinidad and Tobago history. What is the most dramatic elections that stood out to you? You're gonna let me know.